Hey everyone, glad to have you here. In this video, we're diving into something that affects every vessel, every crew, and pretty much every single day at sea. And that's the latest update to MARPOL Annex V on garbage management, which came into effect back in January 2025. Now, I know when we hear garbage, most of us think, yeah, we've got that under control. But this update brings in stricter rules, especially around plastic waste and food waste, and it changes how we need to handle, record, and dispose of garbage on board. So over the next minutes, we're going to break it all down. What's new, what's expected from us, and how to make sure we're staying compliant. But more importantly, how we can protect the ocean we all depend on, all right? Let's jump in. All right, before we dive into the nitty-gritty, let's talk about why this update actually matters. This isn't just another paperwork tweak or box you tick to pass an audit. The IMO updated Annex V for one big reason. The ocean is under pressure, and yeah, a good part of that is on us. Ships, garbage tossed overboard, especially plastics and leftover food waste, doesn't magically disappear. It floats, it pollutes, it chokes marine life, and eventually it washes up in places it shouldn't be. So, starting from January 2025, the rules have gotten a whole lot tighter. This update is all about prevention accountability and having a clear, traceable record of what we're doing with our garbage. That means no more vague logs, no more "we'll update the plan later," and definitely no more treating garbage disposal as an afterthought. We're expected to keep accurate records, follow proper handling procedures, and make sure our garbage management plan is actually current, not just sitting in a folder somewhere gathering dust. And yes, inspections will reflect that. PSC officers, class surveyors, they're going to be checking all of it. So if we're behind, it's not just about fines or delays. It's also about the reputation of our ship, our crew, and the company name on the funnel. That's why we're having this session, to lay it all out, make sure we're clear on what's changed, and get our day-to-day shipboard practices in line. So let's start with the big one, plastic waste. All right, let's talk about the big one, plastic waste. This is one of the main targets in the 2025 update, and IMO has made it super clear. Zero tolerance for plastic discharge. Anywhere. It doesn't matter if you're in open ocean or a special area, no plastic is allowed overboard. Full stop. And we're not just talking about big items like bottles or rope. This includes plastic bags, food wrappers, strapping bands, nets, insulation, synthetic cloth, even tiny stuff like cable ties. If it's plastic, it stays on board. And here's the catch. Even if plastic ends up in the sea by accident, it's still a problem. That means if a plastic bag gets blown off deck or bins aren't secured properly, you're still responsible. Oops, I didn't know. Or the wind took it, isn't going to work anymore. Inspectors won't accept that. Port State Control is stepping up checks. If they suspect any plastic has gone overboard, they'll go through your garbage record book, check your handling procedures, and even inspect your bins and overboard fittings. They're looking for consistency, and if your paperwork doesn't match reality, that's a red flag. So from now on, the rule is simple. Treat plastic waste just like hazardous waste. Store it properly, record it accurately, land it ashore at the next port. It's about taking responsibility, because keeping plastic out of the sea starts with us right here on board. All right, let's keep going. Up next, food waste rules in special areas. That one's changing too, and it's just as important. Now let's shift gears and talk about food waste. Because, yeah, that's getting stricter too, especially when you're sailing in what's called a special area. Back in the day, we had a bit more freedom with food waste discharge in open waters. But since January 2025, the rules have tightened up big time in certain zones. Here's the deal. If you're in a special area, you can't just dump food waste overboard anymore. First, it needs to be comminuted or ground down into tiny particles. And even then, you can only discharge it at least 12 nautical miles from the nearest land. No shortcuts, no exceptions. And it gets stricter. The discharge can't leave floating solids. So if your comminuter or macerator isn't working, guess what? No discharge. That waste has to stay on board until you're either outside the restricted zone or at a port that can receive it. Now, if you're thinking, what happens if we just do it anyway? Well, here's what you're up against. Inspectors can and will. Check your garbage record book. Ask exactly where and when you discharged. Inspect whether your equipment is functional and compliant. If the discharge details don't match your vessel's position or your comminutor's out of order, but you've logged a discharge, that's a big red flag. So here's the bottom line. When you're in or near a special area, treat food waste like restricted cargo. Know your position. Make sure your equipment works. Log everything properly. Coming up next, let's go through which areas are officially listed as special areas under Annex V, so you know where these rules apply. So now you're probably wondering, where exactly are these special areas that come with all these stricter garbage rules? Well, under MARPOL Annex V, special areas are zones that need extra environmental protection. These places are either ecologically fragile, heavily trafficked, or both. Pollution in these areas can do some real damage, not just to marine life, but also to local fisheries, tourism, and coastal communities. Let's go through the list of special areas together. The Mediterranean Sea, the Baltic Sea, the Red Sea, the Gulfs area. That includes the Persian Gulf and Gulf of Oman, the Black Sea, the North Sea, the wider Caribbean region, including the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean Sea, and finally, the Antarctic area, south of 60 degrees south latitude. If your ship is operating in or just passing through any of these areas, you've got to follow tighter discharge rules, especially when it comes to food waste, plastics, and mixed garbage. Here's one more thing to keep in mind. Some of these regions don't have great port reception facilities. So if you're heading in, make sure your ship can store garbage safely until you can land it ashore later. Plan ahead. Because if you wait until the last minute, you might not have options. Always check your passage plan, know the boundaries of these areas, and make sure the entire crew is informed when entering or exiting a special area. This isn't something to leave to just the bridge team. Garbage compliance is everyone's job. All right, let's keep going. Next up, we'll talk about how all this should be documented in your garbage record book. All right, let's talk about something that often flies under the radar, but gets a lot of attention during inspections, and that's your garbage record book, or GRB. With the 2025 update to MARPOL Annex V, The IMO now expects us to keep more detailed, more accurate records. The format's been updated, and we can't just write general notes anymore. We need to be precise. So what's actually different? First off, plastic waste must now be recorded separately. No more lumping it in under general garbage. And each entry needs to include a date, time, position, and how the garbage was handled. Was it discharged, incinerated, or landed ashore? When it comes to food waste, especially in special areas, you've got to include the exact discharge position, whether the waste was comminuted, and how far you were from land when it was discharged. And here's the catch. Vague or lazy entries won't cut it anymore. If you write something like 3 bags disposed without explaining where, how, or what type, it's non-compliant. Plain and simple. Also, don't forget, any incineration, retention on board, or shore delivery needs to be clearly logged. Inspectors are smart. They'll compare your GRB with your vessel's track, your equipment, and your actual garbage procedures. If something doesn't line up, they'll catch it, and that can lead to warnings, detentions, or even fines. Nobody wants that. So here's the bottom line. Treat the garbage record book like a legal document, because it is. Keep it clean, clear, and up to date. And make sure your crew, especially those doing the entries, actually understand how to fill it out properly. All right, next up, let's take a look at how your garbage management plan connects with everything we've just talked about. All right, now let's talk about the Garbage Management Plan, or GMP. Yeah, I know. It's one of those documents that often gets filed away in a drawer and forgotten until inspection day, and that's when everyone suddenly scrambles to find it. But with the 2025 MARPOL Annex V update, the GMP has taken on a much bigger role. Every ship of 100 gross tonnage and above, or any vessel certified to carry 15 people or more, is required to have one. And not just any version. It needs to be updated to match the latest MEPC guidelines. So what does your revised GMP need to cover? First, it should clearly define crew responsibilities. Who's handling garbage sorting? Who's supervising disposal? Who's in charge of logging operations? Second, it needs step-by-step procedures. Where is the garbage stored? How is each type handled? What do you do at port or when sailing through a special area? Third, it must include emergency procedures. What happens if your comminutor breaks down? What if there's an accidental discharge? Fourth, it should cover your crew training routine. How often are briefings held? Are new crew familiarized during sign-on? Do you have signs or posters in key areas like the galley or mess? And here's why this matters. Port State Control and Class surveyors will compare your GMP with 2 things: your garbage record book and what's actually happening on your ship. If your GMP says one thing, but your crew's doing something else, that's a problem. And it could lead to non-compliance findings, or worse, a detention. So don't let your GMP gather dust. Review it, update it, and make sure your crew knows what's inside. Because it's not just a document for show, it's a guide for everyday operations. All right, coming up next, we'll talk about how inspections are changing and what PSC officers are now focusing on when they come on board. All right, let's talk about inspections, because this is where everything we've covered so far gets put to the test. With the 2025 MARPOL Annex V update, Port state control inspections are getting tougher. Inspectors aren't just flipping through your records anymore. They're going deeper, and they're checking everything. Your garbage record book, your garbage management plan, and even your real-life shipboard practices. So what exactly are they looking for? First, they'll check if your garbage record book is being filled out properly. Are you using the updated format? Are your positions, quantities, and methods clearly recorded? Do your log entries match your vessel's track? Next, they'll review your garbage management plan. They'll expect to see that it's updated, aligned with the latest MEPC guidelines, and includes things like crew responsibilities, discharge steps, emergency procedures, and training records, but they won't just stop at paperwork. Inspectors may actually go around the ship. They might check your garbage bins, see how they're labeled, inspect your storage areas, and even ask crew members about the procedures. If your galley team doesn't know how to handle food waste in a special area, or if your deck crew isn't sure what the comminuter does, that could be a red flag. They're also on the lookout for mixed waste, poor segregation, or signs that garbage is being stored unsafely. And if your documents say one thing, but what they see on board tells a different story, well, that's where the trouble starts. So here's the big takeaway. Compliance is not just about the paperwork. It's about your daily habits on board. It's what you do, bag by bag, record by record, every single day. Coming up next, we'll go through a simple checklist of actions you can take now to make sure your ship is ready and fully compliant. All right, now that we've covered the new rules, let's talk about something even more important. What you and your crew should do right now to stay compliant. And I mean right now. Not next week, not next port call. These steps should be happening already or starting today. First, check your garbage record book. Are you using the latest format with the updated waste categories? Sit down with the master, the chief officer, or whoever's in charge of the log, and make sure everyone understands what needs to be recorded and how. No guessing. Second, revise your garbage management plan. If it hasn't been updated in a while, chances are it doesn't meet the new MEPC standards. You'll need to go through it line by line. Update the procedures, review the crew responsibilities, and double-check that special area discharge restrictions are clearly listed. Third, brief your crew. Hold a quick toolbox talk or safety meeting. Walk them through what's changed, especially the new food waste rules in special areas, like the need to comminute and the 12 nautical mile distance. Even your newest deck cadet should know the basics. Next, do a quick walk around of the vessel. Take a look at your garbage bins. Are they properly labeled? Are plastics kept separate? Is everything stored securely? These small things matter, because this is exactly what inspectors are going to look at. And finally, check your equipment. Is your comminuter actually working? Do you have signs in the galley to remind crew what can and can't go into the system? If you're using an incinerator, is it maintained and ready to go? Taking care of these things now helps you avoid trouble during inspections. But more importantly, it shows that your vessel takes environmental protection seriously. All right, let's wrap this up with a final reminder about why this really matters. Not just for compliance, but for the ocean we all work in. As we wrap up this session, I just want to leave you with one simple but powerful reminder. cleaner ships mean cleaner seas. Everything we've talked about today, the updated rules, the garbage logs, the special area restrictions, it's all part of a bigger mission, protecting the ocean that supports our work, our families, and our future. It's easy to treat garbage management like just another task, another form to fill out, another bin to check. But the truth is, every small action on board matters. Every time we store plastics properly, every time we write a clear, accurate entry in the record book, every time we follow the discharge rules, especially in sensitive areas, we're making a difference. The 2025 MARPOL Annex V update didn't just bring tougher rules, it brought clearer expectations. It's not about punishing mistakes, it's about helping us build better habits across the whole fleet. So let's take that seriously. Let's keep our standards high and lead by example. Whether you're the captain, the galley crew, the OS, or the engineer, you matter in this. Because the sea isn't our trash bin. It's our workplace, our home, and for many of us, it's our life. And it deserves our respect. Thanks for staying tuned, for taking this seriously, and for doing your part. Let's keep the ocean clean. Let's keep our ship compliant. And let's keep sailing the right way. And that wraps up our session on the 2025 MARPOL Annex V update and the latest requirements for garbage management on board ships. I hope everything we've covered today felt clear, practical, and easy to apply in your day-to-day routines. Whether you're working on deck, in the galley, on the bridge, or down in the engine room. Because at the end of the day, everyone on board has a role to play in keeping our ship compliant and keeping the ocean clean. If you're watching this as part of onboard training, here's something you can do right after this session. Just take 5 to 10 minutes with your team and ask a few quick questions. Are we logging garbage entries correctly? Is our garbage management plan updated? Does everyone on board know what can and can't be discharged, especially in special areas? And if you're part of the shoreside team, this is a great time to check in with your vessels. Make sure each one has the right documents, working equipment, and a crew that understands the latest rules. If this session helped you out, feel free to share it with your team or other ships in the fleet. And if you'd like more updates like this on safety, compliance, and maritime best practices, go ahead and subscribe to our channel. Got questions? Drop them in the comments. We'll do our best to help you out. Thanks again for tuning in. Until next time, stay safe, stay compliant, and keep the sea clean.